into the Hoist the Colors podcast. It is Monday, March 24th, and the Pirates are coming off a clean sweep of the Memphis Tigers to open conference play. I'm Stephen Igo. I'm joined by Jonathan Wagner, Scott Lohrbatcher. It is every Monday night throughout the season. We're going to be joining you guys breaking down the Pirates week that was. We'll look ahead. Also, the basketball transfer portal was open today. The VIP chat was rolling on. Hoist the Colors. 50% off special, by the way. Sign up while you can. March Madness is ongoing. We've got MLB opening day Thursday, so there is a lot happening, but we're here to talk Pirate baseball. As always, comment sections are open. JPN is already in, as is Johnny Stats. We'll get those questions here in a minute, or comments. But first, we will start with our crew. Jonathan Nene Wagner, Scott Lohrbatcher, the Mr. Parlay himself. And today they're calling me Stephen WITN Igo. You can check me out in the local news complaining about Greenville Utilities. We'll start with Jonathan Nene Wagner. Jonathan, we always start with the opening overall takes of the week that was. So Pirates go 3-1, lose to UNCW, ugly game, and then they sweep Memphis. So your thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, couldn't watch the UNCW game because why would we be able to? But that was one of those games, just following and listening to it. Just felt frustrating. One of those typical ECU midweek games that feels like of recent years. And I think it would have been easy to kind of take that loss and then that carry into the weekend and you struggle to open conference play, but you didn't do that. And you stepped up and you played well for the most part. You pitched extremely well this weekend. So I think that's the big takeaway is you get into conference play, and Memphis is Memphis, but ECU's pitching showed up and did exactly what it needed to and more, and it was really encouraging to see. So a sweep is always good. A sweep to open conference play is even better. So encouraging week, a lot of positives, still a lot to improve on, but overall, I think a 3-1 week, any of us will take that.
Mr. Lohrbatcher, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually was at the game in Fayetteville, so it was equally as frustrating to watch as I'm sure as it was to listen to. And then was there on Friday night for my first trip to Clark LeClaire this year, actually. So it was good to see the Pirates play. I thought we played much better this weekend than we did on Tuesday with a lot more energy. I will say that, reading the comments about the game on Tuesday from people who mostly had to listen and or follow along through Game Tracker, I don't think that game was as lopsided as the score seemed. ECU was kind of the victim of a lot of that baseball moments. A lot of infield hits, a lot of close calls that just didn't go away. The first home run that Wilmington hit, I didn't think was even going to get out. So, the game Tuesday obviously was disappointing. Those are games that I would like to win, and I know we all want to win, but it also wasn't as bad as it may have seemed if you just looked at Gamecast or the box score the next day, and then really rebounded well against a Memphis team that looked far better than any Memphis team I can recall, especially defensively and their pitching staff. Offensively, Memphis, outside of, you get through their first 4 or 5 guys, it was kind of like a little league team where you got 3 guys that you really got to worry about. And then once you get past them, it falls off pretty hard. But, the walks were gone this weekend, guys. So that's great.
It's amazing what happens when you throw strikes in college baseball, man. It makes it so much easier, and it's easier said than done. And I echo a lot of you guys' sentiments. Look, Memphis came in as the best staff ERA in the conference. Now, they had played a weaker schedule, but the one thing they don't do is they don't walk a lot of hitters. So I knew it was going to be a weekend where ECU was going to have to earn it at the plate. Certainly the first 2 days that proved to be true as we saw some of Memphis's top arms that weren't overpowering but knew how to pitch. And then Sunday, it seemed like their Sunday starter maybe was sick. He didn't pitch. He ended up starting their center fielder. He struggled with command. They brought in one of their best relievers. He exited with the injury. Then the floodgates kind of opened after that. But I just think, guys, anytime you sweep a series in the American Athletic Conference, it goes a long way. And look, as long as you win the series, that's going to be the key going forward. But standings-wise, we saw it the first weekend. Nobody swept except ECU. So the Pirates already gain a game on everybody else. And I don't think Memphis is going to get swept a ton this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're a team that's at least going to win a game, if not two, most weekends in conference play. So this is a positive step. And then you start with Rice, which we'll get into here in a little bit, with a chance for at another sweep, although certainly not guaranteed on the road, despite them playing poorly to this point. All right, we always also go, as we read a comment here, death taxes, ECU sweep in Memphis, as JPN 1212 says, and Johnny Robertson says 13 in a row against the Tigers, 23 of the last 25. So ECU officially owns Memphis in baseball. So that is certainly something that is continuing. I think that last loss was a conference tournament game years ago. So Pirates controlling the Memphis series right now. Guys, we always go what we learn in a week or a weekend. What did you guys learn? We'll start with Wags.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways you can go, but I'm going to go with, I think I learned that ECU has solved its third outfield question. And to me, I think you have Peltier in center right now, and his bat's still coming along, but he's an elite defensive center fielder. Well, except for the first play on, I think it was whatever day it was this weekend where he dropped it. Sunday. And, you know, Braden Burris, whichever spot you have, and then after that, it's been a big question. You know, Drew Downs has stepped in, Davin Whitaker's played a couple games out there, and you haven't really found your guy. And insert Braxton Trammell, a guy who coming in, we all had high expectations for. I mean, I admitted on the preseason pod, when I was picking my home run leader for the team, I was between two freshmen. It was Austin Irby and it was Braxton Trammell. And Braxton Trammell, he started slow, and you kind of wondered, you know, is he going to get the opportunity to kind of find his bat again? And left field isn't a natural position for him, I don't think. And I still think you're going to have a lot of those games where he starts and then, you know, you're going to have a defensive replacement come in, whether it's Drew Downs or whoever. But Trammell proved that his bat, it's good enough to be in this lineup and hit right in the heart of it. I mean, he got multiple hits in all three games this weekend. He hit, what, 2 home runs, I think.
2 home runs, yep.
And, man, he can swing it. And he batted cleanup one day. So if they can find that consistently, and he's not going to, you know, hit 500 every weekend for the rest of the season. But I think just knowing that you have another bat that you can kind of trust to hit in any spot of the order, he's a switch hitter. So I really like Braxton Trammell. I'm glad to see him kind of break out this week. And I think it's going to be just the start. And I think that final question in the lineup, I think, has been solved.
Scott, what did you learn?
Well, I learned that you can call us Joe Exotic the way that we on the Tigers. No, I'll go Tuesday night. What I thought driving home Tuesday night, I learned that was not true on Sunday afternoon. And that's that D'Lo didn't respond well to adversity. On Tuesday night when he came in, he got a soft ground ball to short that was hit so softly that Boucher couldn't make the throw in time, and it led to an infield run scoring single that led to multiple walks and runs and kind of a really bad outing for D'Lo in a situation where the game was very much still in play. But then on Sunday, he starts the game, which I really liked, by the way. I really liked D'Lo starting that game and then Jenkins coming in the second and giving you extended innings, and I hope we see that going forward. But you get the error in center field. D'Lo responds with getting an out on a bunt, a pop-up, and a third out to end the inning without giving up a run. That's not what I would have expected in that situation based off some of his previous outings. So I'm really excited to see that. I hope we see more of that going forward, where if something negative happens, he responds in a positive way. And I think that goes for a lot of our pitching staff where, you know, a close pitch goes the other way and then the walks start to pile up and things start to snowball. But we saw on Sunday that with D'Lo and Sean Jenkins, they both have the stuff to compete at this level, especially within this conference. And I think they went out there and proved it. So I was really, really happy to see that.
I learned, and we touched on it earlier, but when you throw strikes and you don't hit batters, you are a very good pitching staff for East Carolina. Look, 3 walks, 3 walks, and 2 walks for the 3 games, and no hit batters for the entire series, gentlemen. I don't know if Memphis just doesn't crowd the plate or if ECU just finally threw some strikes. But you look at it, here are the totals for the last number of losses. Against UNCW, ECU walked 7 and hit 3. That's 10 free passes. In the final game against Coastal Carolina, they walked 8 and they hit a batter. That's 9. In the 9-1 loss to Coastal Carolina, they walked 5 and they hit 5. That's 10. Against Kent State, they walked 3 and they hit 1. That's not terrible. So 4 free passes, more hits given up that game. North Carolina, the final game, they walked 10, hit 1. By the way, they threw 4 wild pitches as well. In the other losses to Carolina, walked 9, hit 1, and then walked 3, hit 0. That was a close 2-0 loss. That one wasn't as bad. But you guys get what I'm going at here. More times than not, when ECU throws strikes, they win baseball games. They've got good enough stuff to do it. It's easier said than done, but I think we already knew that, but I learned that it's definitely a factor right now with ECU. All right. We've got some questions here. JPN 1212 says, my only beef with the way we managed the pitching staff was Saturday. Or he says the only beef he had with the weekend was the way the pitching staff was managed Saturday. He said, I'd love to see Pruitt come back out for the 8 with his pitch count low so we could save Hunter for Sunday. I get what you're saying in theory, but wasn't Pruitt's pitch count pretty high at that point? Hadn't he already thrown like almost 5 innings?
He had gone 4.2, 63 pitches.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a lot of pitches. I know he has been stretched out, but that's a season high in innings for Brad Pruitt. And he had already thrown against UNCW. So I'm fine pulling him there. I don't know about y'all. Any thoughts?
Yeah, personally, I like giving guys clean innings. And I think if you let him pitch into the 8th, you run the risk of needing to go get him. And that game was pretty tight anyway. So, 60 pitches for him, I think makes a lot of sense. And, we also know that Memphis's pitching depth is a lot less than East Carolina's. So you're probably expecting to score a lot more runs on Sunday anyway. And you're in a low scoring game on Saturday. I think you got to go out there and just secure the win, get the series, take the pressure off Sunday, and let them play a lot more free.
Any thoughts here, Wags?
Yeah, I agree. I think, we've seen at times this year that if you let an arm like Pruitt kind of get tired a little bit, you do run the risk of the effectiveness going down a little bit. So, yeah, I don't hate it, and I completely agree with Scott. Clean innings are great innings to start, and Jake Hunter's one of your guys. I think at this point you trust Jake Hunter maybe more than anybody outside of Ethan Young. So, not surprised, but yeah, I didn't have a problem with it.
All right, our next question here is Zach Griffin wants to know any chance Brett and Tolick is back this week. According to my sources, Zach, no. My understanding is he is still dealing with some discomfort in his hip, which he had surgically repaired, so I would not expect to see him for quite some time. And, the reality is, guys, I just don't know with these injured players if they're going to be back, when they're going to be back. Ryan Towers, it sounds like, is going to pick up and try to throw a baseball the very last of this month. There's going to be a build-up process there. It seems like he's had a few setbacks, and Tolick now, it seems like, with a setback. And, Riley Johnson, it sounds like, is giving kind of a last-ditch effort, according to Cliff Godwin, to play this season. He did have a cortisone shot for the pain in his, groin, abdomen area. Again, don't know exactly what the deal is there, but they've said tendonitis. And, I mean, to be honest, it's not looking super positive on the injury front. And it's unfortunate. I don't think Cliff Godwin's going to use it as an excuse, but the reality is you're down arguably your most dynamic player and 2 projected weekend starters, and you may not get them back, Wag. So this is part of sports, man. You got to deal with injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And to this point, I think you've dealt with them pretty well. But, I think you also get to a point to where at what point in the season do you just kind of say, okay, maybe it's not going to happen. It's not worth, rushing you to get back or doing everything you have to get back. if you're going to come in and not be yourself. You talk about a guy like Riley Johnson, and we all know what he is when he's healthy. He is a game changer in the outfield. He plays an elite center field. He's throwing his body all over the place, making crazy catches, and he's hitting leadoff. He's slapping base hits all over the place. He's putting down bunts. He's running. He's using his speed as a weapon. If he comes in and he's not 100% and he's not the Riley Johnson that we've seen in previous years, then maybe it's not worth, rushing him to get back, and it's better to get healthy and try it again next year. And with the pitchers too, I think, obviously you want as many pitchers as possible, but we're at a point in the season now, we're in conference play, and every game matters right now. And ECU, I feel a lot better about this team right now than I did a couple weeks ago. I think this team is going to win the American. They're going to be in the postseason, but the closer you get to the postseason, the less opportunities you have to ramp a guy up against live hitters, to find a role against another team, and that's tough to do on the fly. So, it's tough. Obviously, you want everyone. You want your full array of players available to you at all times, but at some point that just becomes unrealistic, and you're never going to be fully healthy. But if you can get them in and you can ease them in, I think you do it. But if you get them back and you're having to force them into some big spots when they might not be ready for it, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I would say, Scott, at this point, I'm not counting on any of them to get back. I'm not trying to slight any of them or anything. It's just, if you're ECU right now, I don't think you can. You almost have to have the mindset of, all right, we're going to operate as if we don't have these guys the rest of the season. And if you happen to get one or two back, then that's great. But at this point, I'm just trying to find a way to move forward with this team as it's currently constructed.
Yeah, and I would say we've been fortunate on the injuries standpoint from the guys who are available. We haven't really lost anyone there. So that's great. But as far as those three, there's a couple factors, right? Riley Johnson's 23. If he doesn't want to stay in school, then, if he gets better and this is his last year, he's decided no matter what, and he wants to play, the last 4 weekends and conference tournament, NCAA tournament, and then be done, that's obviously his choice too. And then, it's the same thing with the other two as far as eligibility, how long they want to be in school, because it's really easy at times to forget that roster management, you're dealing with real people and real life situations, right? Like these guys all have aspirations beyond college, whether it's baseball or their careers, and they're going to get into that. So, some guys don't want to stay in school forever. I know Ben Terwilliger had a year left and he was just ready to start his life. So he played his last year and then moved on. So, but I think if you're an ECU fan right now, the team that you have seen through the games we played is the team that you should expect to see for the rest of the year. And if we get one of these guys back, that's only a bonus.
My understanding with Riley is, from talking with sources, he's got basically a decision to make. There's a cutoff point. I guess it would be with all these guys. If they don't play, or if they do play by a certain point in the season, they will not be able to medical redshirt in terms of if they play too late. And so I think that point is coming up. So if you don't see them in the next few weeks, there's a chance that they just sit out to get the medical redshirt. And I do understand from Riley's case, I think he would want to come back to play that extra year, but if that's set in stone, I don't know. I think we were kind of texting about this earlier, guys. I think he would have a tough time going out this way, not being able to play on his own terms with everything he's given the program. And I hate it for him, man. Here's a guy who got his shoulders cleaned up and finally talked about being pain-free in the preseason, and then gets this injury. It's just highly unfortunate. But, hope the last thing, too, you'd want to do is bring him back for one game, him be unable to play anymore, and then miss the rest of the season, not be able to get a medical. So it's not an easy decision, it sounds like. All right, so there's your injury update. Chuck says, will Jake Hunter be the new midweek starter? So he is starting the Duke game. Can't remember who's starting for Duke, but either way, I would expect a staff day on both sides. We've talked about this. I don't know if you're going to have a established starter outside of Ethan Orby at this point, guys. So, I mean, I guess you just take it game by game, Wags. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, and Duke is starting a lefty tomorrow. Henry Zatkowski. He's got a 5.71 ERA, 17 innings pitched on the year. So he's a lefty, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think as far as the pitching, I think ideally, and we've talked about this for as long as we've been doing this podcast. Give us a true midweek starter, and it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. I mean, last week I said I feel good about Nick Moran being the midweek starter, and he gave me 1 2/3, and I'm never going to feel good about a true midweek starter ever again. But I think to me, it's just like 2022, and Cliff said it this weekend too. It's like that with this pitching staff, and you're going to find roles. It's going to be a different role every week, maybe, but the job is to get through an inning and go from there. And if you give more, you give more, and that's great. But I would like Jake Hunter in that role in an ideal situation, but I don't want to limit him from pitching on the weekends because while, I said earlier, this pitching staff did do so well this weekend. It was Memphis, and I still don't fully trust all those guys to do it a second week in a row. So, you have Ethan Young, you have Brad Pruitt. I still need Jake Hunter in the back end of that bullpen on a weekend. So I don't expect him to go out tomorrow and throw 5. But, who knows? And as more good teams come up on these midweeks too, your Dukes, your NC States, and UNCWs, and all those teams, who knows? Maybe it changes it. But I do like Jake Hunter on the role. I think it's going to be a week-to-week, day-by-day, game-to-game situation, situationally as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think it's going to be tough to have. I mean, we don't even have I guess Lance Williams is your weekend starter at this point, but he's even more as an opener still in many ways. Jackson DiLorenzo, your new Sunday guy for now. At least you guys know the opener deal, obviously. But I don't know, Scott, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think I've been a midweek starter advocate for a long, long time. So, and Jake Hunter has always been a guy that I've suggested because I think he does so well the first time through the lineup, which is huge on midweek games. And then the other side of it is with our conference being the way that it's been over the last 3 or 4 years, the midweek games are often as important as the Sunday games that we play in conference series because they're your RPI boost, especially this time of year where we start hitting a few more of like the road games, at Duke, at NC State, at UNCW, at Campbell when they're good. You need a guy to go out there and give you innings to get into the bullpen of everyone else because pitching depth is not something that pretty much outside of the select few that is something that teams have. So I would say let's look for Hunter to go out and give us 3, maybe 4 innings, 50 to 60 pitches, and then he's still available for the weekend. But I do think it's really important. And we thought that was going to be Nick Moran's role going into last week, and then obviously we saw what happened there, where he caught a bad break with the error early, hit some guys. So hopefully Jake Hunter will be immune to that tomorrow.
All right, Brady Thomas hoists the colors. Intern says a little confused on Cliff's comments on Saturday, with Cliff saying Sean isn't going to start and came in the second inning on Sunday. What's really the difference? It's more of a major league teams have done this. Really, with the Rays popularized it when, like 5 years ago, maybe the whole opener thing, maybe even before that. They would throw a bullpen guy first inning or 2, and that way, I think it takes some pressure off the starter as he's coming in as a reliever, maybe a little less to think about, and B, the lineup you have to prepare as if you're going to face a different pitcher because obviously they see Jackson DiLorenzo as the starter. They don't know that Sean Jenkins is going to be in the second inning. So they're going over the DiLorenzo scout. They're probably going over like the 5 or 6 reliever scouts as a coaching staff. So it just kind of creates some uncertainty on the other side. And on the ECU side, I think it takes some pressure off Sean Jenkins. All right, you're just going to be a reliever today. You're going to go in early, but we're not counting on you to go 5-6. Now, he did go that, but I don't think that was the plan. He just was pitching that well. So, yeah, anything to add here, Wags?
Yeah, I think it definitely wasn't the plan for Sean Jenkins to throw as many innings as he did, but in general, I like the opener concept. Maybe not every weekend, but in a situation like this where you have a freshman pitcher, a 17-year-old freshman pitcher who, is kind of looking to get his confidence back, why not try something new? And if he comes in, he throws 2 innings and he pitches well, but he looks like, maybe it's not going to be a long outing. Cool. You get him that, you get his confidence back. But he came in and he pitched very well. I think he still wasn't the sharpest either, but he gave you length, and I really liked what I saw. So again, I like the opener concept, but I think you like you said, it takes a little pressure off, and it changes up how the opposition scouts you because they don't know what the plan is. ECU knows what the plan is, and the plan changes inning to inning really. But yeah, it's fun, it's different, and again, I think sometimes you have to get a little creative and try something else if what you're currently doing isn't working. And what ECU was doing wasn't working before. Try something new, maybe it sticks, who knows.
All right, William Alexander says Sean Jenkins looked better with an opener. Maybe that is the confidence boost he needed because we will need him as we get into tougher conference competition. We had Sean Jenkins on the show, 94.3 The Game. You can check that out, YouTube. Our Spotify, Apple Podcast channel is having issues. IBX Media is looking into it, hoping to have that resolved in the next day. This podcast channel is still good to go if you're listening. So separate podcast channels, but make sure to check out the other show regardless. Sean said something today that interested me, guys. I guess he was mainly just throwing a four-seamer along with the secondary stuff, and he said he just added the two-seamer, which had excellent movement. If y'all were watching the TV copy, you could see it really moving a lot. So I think that was a factor, as well as obviously throwing more strikes. And I don't know, what did you see out of Sean on Sunday from your perspective, Scott?
He looked much more like a complete pitcher. And, having Di Lorenzo come in and pitch to the top of Memphis's order allowed him to settle in with the back half of a lineup that's not very good outside the top 4 or 5 guys. And then once he settled in, he was strong. So, I do think the opener concept really works well with younger guys, especially, and maybe we'll see it more going forward. But he just looked like he had all of his pitches working, and he could spot them, and he could get ahead in counts and stay ahead. And of course, Memphis's lineup was a little bit overmatched with a guy like Sean Jenkins who has next level stuff. So really need to see him going forward, continue to build on this. I think we've seen him have good outings, and then not back them up with good outings. So I think he threw like 80-something pitches on Sunday. Hopefully comes back out next Sunday. Maybe we go opener again against Rice, who's kind of in a similar situation, maybe a little worse than Memphis, and then do the same thing, give you 4 or 5 innings of just really well-pitched baseball where all of your pitches are working and not just 1 or 2.
Yeah, and I don't think he needs to go out there and throw 5-6 shutout innings, especially if he's in that opener/Sunday role. Like if he goes 4 or 5 innings and gives you, quality start, 2-3 runs given up, I think you're going to be sitting in good space because as we are going to see in this league, once you get past the first or second starter, it is going to be a struggle. Always is in the American for every team. All right, Kendra Presley says, can y'all explain – or excuse me, she says, can y'all explain the NCAA issue with the first base coach issue that has CG, geez, I can't even talk. It's been a long day. CG back at third base. I don't really know what the issue was. I do know that Cliff said, I guess since Bryant Packard is a student graduate assistant or whatever the official term is, he can't technically coach on the field. I haven't double-checked all those rules, I'm going to be honest. I just think, Henry Lartigue's been the first base coach since the North Carolina series, so this was not a direct result of that being the issue. I know that was mentioned, but Cliff was kind of given the full story. It's just that there was one outlet that just kind of made it seem like the violation was the reason this was a change. I think Cliff went back to coaching third base because he's now got a better pulse on the team. He also said there was missed signs with Palumbo not at first base. And he also said on today's show there was a sign that they executed where only him and Jeff could have done it with their background. He basically gave a hand signal, I guess, to Jeff, and they were able to execute that on the fly. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's just one of those things, guys, where I kind of always felt Cliff was going to be back at third. It was just a matter of when, because like I think he wants to be out there, especially at home. He wants to engage with the fans, get them on their feet, and now he feels more comfortable with where the offense is, and this is why he's back at third. More so than the violation being the reason. Wags, we'll go around the horn. Wags, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think the reason that Brian Packard can't be the guy out there, I think you have to be a uniformed, like in uniform, full-time member of the staff to be on the field. And don't quote me on that, but I feel like that's the reason. But yeah, I mean, I think I changed my tone a little bit on the Cliff and the dugout after the first couple of weeks because I just thought with this team, that's where he needs to be. And he said that before. But, yeah, I think like he said, he has a better pulse of this team. And it really – Cliff's comments really goes to show you just the game inside the game of baseball. And, if Cliff at third and Palumbo at first, it might seem like such a small thing. But in the grand scheme of things, it is big. It can steal you a stolen base. It can steal you a run. It can steal you a win. And in a season where you need to win as many games as you really can down the stretch, then Cliff's he's gonna put the best team on the field, and I think that includes the coaching staff. And if he feels like he's the best option at third base, Palumbo's the best option at first base, then I think that's what he's gonna do. And he needed to go see it from a different angle. And it's similar to, I say this in hockey a lot. A guy has a bad game, and maybe he needs to go spend a game in the press box, and he needs to see it from a different angle and see it from up top, no pressure of playing. And I think maybe Cliff kind of used that mentality with himself. And he just said, this team has struggled early on. I need to go in to the dugout and watch it, coach him up. Now he's more comfortable. The bats have come alive a little bit more. And even when they aren't hitting, they look like they're hitting better and they're having better at bats. So Cliff feels more comfortable that he can go out and coach the way he wants to.
All right, so we got some people saying Bryant is a volunteer assistant and can't be on the field. So although I've had like 4 or 5 people text me in the industry saying that other teams are still doing this and it hasn't been regulated. So I don't know if ECU just somebody complained. Either way, the last time he coached first was February 18th. That was more than a month ago. So like I think this is just kind of a side story to why Cliff is actually back on the field now. All right, Scott, your thoughts on Cliff returning to third. Kendra says it felt more like ECU baseball with Cliff at third.
Yeah, I think the fan engagement point you made was a good one. It does feel like Cliff is there to energize the crowd, and as great as Palumbo is, I never really saw the crowd engagement out of him. Maybe we should get Mike Schwartz to coach third base. You're supposed to have the Schwartz clip dialed in.
Oh yeah, no, I deleted it.
And then the other part of it is, I think now that the lineup that you see, the Braden Burness, the Braxton Trammell lineup is the one that you'll see the rest of the year. And I think a lot of Cliff being in the dugout was figuring out who of those guys it was going to be. And now that that's figured out, it allows him to move back out to third base, to be involved in the game a lot more. But yeah, because he's talked about in his pressers the last couple of games about Trammell was trying too hard and Burris just needed to watch a game, and those types of things with the younger guys. And now that those younger guys have played half a season, they're not really younger guys anymore. They've kind of developed into who they are going to be this year as baseball players. And I think now that they're there, he can go back out in the field comfortably.
All right, a couple more comments here then we'll transition to some more storylines or thoughts on the week. Johnny Robertson says Braden Burris in his last 12 games is batting .475 and has an on-base percentage of .611. He and Braxton Trammell had a combined batting average of 611 this weekend. That'll play. William Alexander says, may the Schwartz be with us. Yeah, Pirates getting the return of Jordan Riley. That was big today, along with a few others. We'll continue to follow the portal and basketball on hoistedcolors.net. And let's see here. Josh Thomas saying, to be a young team, make sure I get the right comment. To be a young team, the young guys are really crushing the ball at the plate. Definitely the batting average continues to tick up. Helps, too, when you're facing lesser competition, but certainly the guys are getting better. William Alexander says, on a high note, 1 week into conference play, we find ourselves in a familiar place alone at the top. Riley Johnson, would he have eligibility for 26 if he didn't play the season? Yes, he would if he chooses to pursue it. JPN 1212. Right. I think I caught up on all the comments except for Kaysen, which I'll bring up once we talk about Duke. The week that was, guys, like some individual standouts, I'll hit on a couple, and then I'll let y'all kind of add to this as well, or any storylines that really stood out. Look, Ethan Norby just continues to post on Friday. Solid start. We're kind of taking that for granted, but he's looking like a Friday night guy. The other guy that really stood out to me was Colby Wallace. Defensively, I thought played – I know he had an error at one point, but it was a tough play. I thought he made like 5 or 6 plays that were – easily could have been tough hop hits or ruled errors on the short hop that he made great plays on. And I thought his defense, when honestly the rest of the infield defense wasn't too good on the week, his saved some hits and some runs. So any other standouts from this week, Mr. Parlay?
Yeah, I thought Austin Irby had a really good weekend too. Made a great play at first. He hit the ball really well all weekend. And like you said, Colby Wallace had a great weekend. You're really starting to see the meat of this lineup develop. And, I remember Colby Wallace early in the year, we kept saying he needs a break, he needs a break, he needs a break. Well, on Friday night, I looked up at the scoreboard and I was like, that's his batting average right now? I was like, okay, well, he's back. It does feel like Dixon's maybe cooled off a little bit. But if we can get Dixon, Colby, and Austin Irby and Braden Burris all going at the same time, then this lineup is going to score a lot of runs. So, really good to see our infield bats starting to really take shape.
What about you, Wags? Anything we haven't hit on that we need to touch on from this past week?
Yeah, first I just want to quickly say that right now Braden Burris is our best hitter, and it's not really close. And Dixon is the guy in the 2-hole. Dixon is still a very good hitter. But I think we are starting to see, teams aren't going to challenge him if they don't have to. And having a guy like Braden Burris who can set the table at the start of a game and the start of an inning, it's so valuable. But I want to talk about Alex Boucher. And he needs to clean up the errors. He needs to be better defensively. And I haven't complained about defense yet, so we'll get that out of the way. But, offensively, he still has a lot of swing and miss. He might hit it 400 feet. He might strike out on 3 pitches. And sometimes there's no in between. But right now, I think he's hitting 260s and somewhere in the 260s. And sometimes we've seen him move up to the cleanup spot a couple times recently. And we've seen him in the traditional, 7, 8, 9 hole. And he's shown that he's capable of being more than just a home run or bust type of guy. He can come through with a hit. He can come through with an extra base hit. He can come up, put a bunt down, and I think that's huge because that lengthens the lineup so much. And when you have so many questions throughout, I think it only strengthens. And guys like Irby, who's hitting 6-7 right now, but so many other questions in the lineup still. Just if Boucher can continue hitting at the level he is right now, 260s, and I think that's more than any of us thought he would hit average-wise. So I still think I'd like Igo's prediction of him hitting 3 homers. I'd like him to start doing that a little more. But, man, his bat is coming around, and it's been better than expected for me at least over the past couple of weeks.
He's gotten a few big bunts down as well in some crucial spots. And I agree that the 2-strike approach has gotten better. I think he's shortening it up some. He had a few warning track flyouts this week, so I thought he had some quabs, even though his average maybe didn't reflect it. Braden Burris, guys, I just ran the numbers. So he struck out 4 times in that, I think it was the second game of the year. Yep, 4 times against George Mason in game number 2. In the last 21 games, he has struck out 2 times. I mean, that is insane. Elite bat-to-ball skills, and overall, 10 walks, 4 hit-by pitches, 6 strikeouts. So 14 free passes with a 5.14 on-base percentage. The man is just getting on base. So a big fan of his game. And obviously, I'm sure he'll slump at some point, but I think, too, with his style of play, he's not going to be slumping for long. JPN 1212 says, do you think John Collins is secure in the DH, or will others get a shot at DH? I actually think Collins is another guy who has hit the ball pretty hard consistently. And the other thing, too, he has cut down on his strikeouts a lot as well. Look, there are times with his style he's going to have some bad swings. I would like to see him be a little more selective at the plate, only 4 walks, but he's cut down the strikeouts. He still has an OPS over 1,000. So I'm fine with Collins at DH for now. Maybe against some good righties, we'd like to see, like a Kellenich, or heck, even Davin Whitaker hit the home run, get a shot. But your thoughts on DH and John Collins, Scott?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends. If Riley Johnson comes back, that's a spot that you may end up seeing like an Alex Boucher and having, one of the current guys in the outfield move to shortstop, who may be a little bit better defensively there. And like you said, I think if it's a left-handed pitcher, Collins makes a lot of sense. If it's a right-handed pitcher, then he makes a lot less sense. And I think that's why you've seen him pinch hit for a lot this season. And then obviously with Walker Barron catching every game this year, it seems like, I would hope that there are opportunities where Collins maybe even gets a start behind the plate to get Walker off his feet if we're playing, a Sunday game where we've already won a series. So I do think he'll DH, but I think it is very specific to left-handed pitching. If it's a righty that starts, I don't think you'll see him there.
All right. We should take a look at the latest RPI before we dive into the week ahead. ECU sitting at 90. I think this is the exact spot they were in last week, right, before they lost to UNCW. And, actually didn't lose too much ground with sweeping Memphis, despite Memphis being towards the bottom of the 100s in RPI, I believe. Yeah, they're now 205. So Memphis out of the top 200. So ECU right now, guys, it just is what it is. The resume is super light. 1-5, quad 1, 1-3. No, excuse me, I'm looking at St. John's. 0-1, quad 2. 2-1, quad 3, 12-2, quad 4. So ECU's beating the bad teams and losing to the good teams. And so ECU right now, again, this is going to fluctuate a lot. You look at the upcoming schedule, you got Duke, who is top 50 in RPI. Rice is 177. UNCW after that, 5 straight road games coming up, which is 62nd. Is UNCW, and then you face Elon, who is 227, FAU, who's 65, State is 60, Charlotte's 106, at UAB 74. So, just not a lot of meat on the bone here with the schedule, but I don't know. How do you see this, Wags? It's unfortunately a case where I think you're going to have to win a lot of baseball games to get this RPI back in the top 50 range.
Yeah, you're going to have to win a lot of games, and to be the most comfortable, you're going to have to win a lot of games in the last week of the season and the conference tournament. And that's the only way to make you feel comfortable, I think. And, like you said, it's just there's not a lot left there for you to get. And it's tough. And, we were talking earlier, I mentioned that I miss having ECU as like a top 25 fringe team. Just because, I do top 25 predictions every Sunday. I miss kind of having ECU there and wondering, should I be biased and put them in? And it's the same thing with, RPI. It's like right now you have to scroll so long to get them. And you just kind of wonder, at what point we keep saying, it'll normalize a little bit. And there are still some teams right now in the top 10, 15 that will not be there at the end of the season. And ECU, I don't think, is going to be at 90, but it's a question of how high can they get. And we're talking, I still think this is a tournament caliber team, but we might get to a situation where, you drop a midweek game and you go 2-1 on a weekend, you go 2-2, and on the surface it might feel like that's okay, but the numbers, depending on how you do it, that might be enough to kill you. So it's one of those things where I feel good about the team right now, but if you go 2-2 this week, then your RPI is probably going to drop. And the more you do it, you have to get into a position to where you're in that top, 40, 50 at the very least to feel comfortable as an at-large. If you don't win the conference tournament, and the conference tournament is such a crapshoot, then it makes me nervous. So you need to win. That's what it comes down to. You need to win, and it'd sure be nice if the teams that you've already played continue to win, and teams that you're about to play also keep winning. So I don't feel good. I never will, I think, until the conference tournament's secured, but just win, baby.
Some of these guys, these in-state or local regional games are looking like RPI anchors. Gardner-Webb is 289 in the RPI. VCU and William & Mary. VCU might be the worst team in college baseball. VCU is 419. They are 273rd in the RPI. This was a regional team last year. William & Mary, usually solid. They are 262 in the RPI. Elon is on the schedule twice. They are 227 in the RPI. Might need to try to find a way to cancel one of those games. Now, Scott, I'll let you weigh on this too. Johnny Robertson says William & Mary is 263, VCU 273. Fittingly, they meet on April Fool's Day on the diamond. Zach makes a good point. The bright side, it sounds like the RPI of some of our conference opponents is better, at least at the top. UTSA, UAB, and FAU. Yeah, the conference RPIs aren't terrible, Scott, but it's like none of them are great either. So, I just don't – maybe you get some quad 2 wins here on the road, which will help. But any thoughts here on how this is shaping up?
Yeah, and add Campbell into a team that's kind of disappointing RPI-wise. That's a team you usually expect to be top 75, and they're not going to be that this year. But, FAU is a good example of how volatile RPI is right now. The last 2 weeks, they've gone 7-2, and they've dropped from 19 to 64. It also is a good reason why you can't lose to Rice, because they did, and they lost a game to Miami and a game to Rice in that stretch, and their RPI has taken a huge hit for it. So, if we don't want to have those hits, then don't lose to Rice. But this is actually a good time to talk about it going into this week, because there's a couple big matchups RPI-wise in the league. USF hosts Tulane. USF currently 42nd, I think. Yeah, 42nd in RPI. Tulane is 17-7. They're like 130 in RPI. But wins are a factor in how many points you get for beating a team. So, and we play USF on the road. So if you're an East Carolina fan, best case scenario is USF continues to win, stays in the top 50, maybe even better in RPI. And then as we win, we have an end of the season team that could be a huge boost to our RPI. And then the other side of that is, where's one? It's UTSA and FAU play this weekend. They're both in the mid 60s in RPI. I believe that those games are at FAU. Probably best case scenario is for one of those teams to sweep the other one, really boost their RPI, and then you could potentially have 2 top 50 teams in RPI in the league, which we haven't had in, I don't remember the last time. Probably when Houston was good the last time, or maybe when UConn was still an American Conference team. So really, our best case scenario as a conference is always to be super top heavy, and then to dominate the bad teams, and then 2-1 against the potentially top 60, 75 RPI teams.
Good stuff there. I was laughing, Scott, because you
I keep freezing. I'm freezing on my own.
Freezing. Elon Musk doesn't like you talking RPI, which we
anytime I pull up Warren Nolan during the show,
it's brutal.
Yeah,
he takes the internet.
So Quad 1 constitutes on the road as a top 60 team. So USF, as they sit today, is 42. That would be a Quad 1 series to close the season. Again, a lot can change between now and then, as Scott was mentioning, so nothing set in stone there, but it is a possibility. And then Quad 1 at home, 1 through 25. So, like, we're probably not going to get a Quad 1 at home opportunity, but top 50 at home is a Quad 2 opportunity, 26 to 50. So that could be a possibility as well. Like UTSA, they're 67. So if they got into the top 50, or a UAB is on the road as well, they're 74. So if they got into the top 60, that could be a Quad 1 opportunity as well. All right, so we'll keep you updated week to week now. I feel like now we'll be into April, the RPI will be worth mentioning. All right, so again, ECU 15-9, 3-0 in the conference, only team undefeated after 1 week in a conference play. Pirates this week get Duke on Tuesday, 7 o'clock first pitch. Yuck. That'll be a late one, ACC Network Extra or whatever they call it. Interesting game. Duke they swept. Who did they sweep, guys? Virginia, which is tanking, by the way. Brian O'Connor had some comments about that earlier in the week. They play NC State this coming weekend, so I do wonder how much this game really matters to them. I did see the guy they were starting just threw 2 1/3 innings yesterday on Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't expect him to go too long. Duke midweek, and then Rice for 3. Rice won 1 at FAU under new head coach David Pierce. We talked about that. They are not good, but you have to wonder do they get that new coach bump in season? I don't know. We'll find out.
They do have a 5-game week this week as well. Right,
I saw that. They play Lamar and somebody else midweek.
Texas Southern.
So, Texas Southern and Lamar. The old Texas two-step. Predictions for the week ahead, guys. What are we thinking here? We'll start with Wags.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1. I'll start it there. I think you lose to Duke and you sweep Rice. I don't know why. I have a bad feeling that maybe it's a good feeling that it goes the other way and you beat Duke and then you lose 1 to Rice, which I really don't want to lose 1 to Rice. But I'm going to go 3-1 either way. Whichever way it happens, I'll still be correct. So I'm not going to, put my name on how it goes down.
I am curious, does beating Duke on the road cancel out 1 road loss to Rice? Probably comes out pretty even, and you would get a Quad 1 win theoretically. So maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, although you probably just want to sweep the conference opponent. I don't know. Just thinking possibilities there. Scott, what do you think about the week ahead?
Yeah, if you give me the choice right now of a win in Durham and then a 2-1 weekend, I'd take that all day. But I'll go 3-1. I'll be there tomorrow night, so I'm going to continue my streak of not predicting us to win when I go because they never do. So, especially on the road.
Yeah, I think we'll see more ECU fans there than Duke fans at old Jack Coombs Field Stadium, whatever the heck it's called.
Still available as of 10 a.m. this morning.
There you go. I don't think there's many Duke baseball fans.
Also, $9.
$9.
If you're in the area, $9.
It's a heck of a deal. You may even get to take a piss beside a Duke baseball player pregame. I hope they've upgraded the facility since then. JPN 1212 says 4-0. Jake Hunter with a big win versus Duke is what he says. I am going 3-1. I think Pirates lose to Duke and then sweep Rice. I think I had last week 3-1 with the loss to UNCW and a sweep of Memphis. I think ECU right now is a team that can beat teams below them and struggle to beat really talented teams. Duke is really talented. If they can throw strikes on Tuesday, because Duke is going to score some runs. If they can throw strikes and limit the free passes, not get beat by the crooked numbers and big innings, I think they can win, but it's going to be a challenge. Hopefully Duke throws some young arms who struggle to throw strikes as well. Would be a nice RPI bump. I'm going to go 3-1, though. Pirates 6-0 in conference sounds pretty good if they can make that happen. All right, bold predictions. I had Alex Boucher 3 home run week. That did not happen. Jonathan Wagner had what was the combined total in innings? 18 innings from starting pitchers.
18. Yeah.
What was our final tally?
I was about a whole game short. So
It was 10.1, 10 and a third.
If you
and
count
some people
Jenkins
said
as
it wasn't
6,
bold enough.
you were at least somewhat close, although it doesn't count.
Yeah. And
What was yours,
tried
Scott?
to say it wasn't bold enough.
I had we would run rule Memphis twice, and we did once. And if Memphis doesn't make 16 circus sketches on Friday night, maybe we do it twice. But
Yours was definitely the closest. There's no doubt about that. All right. Who wants to start it off here? Does anybody have one ready to go?
I got you.
Okay, we'll start with Scott.
The Pirates will score at a minimum 36 runs this week. 9 runs a game.
That's bold. I would say that's bold. Especially 4 road games. There will be a lot of road runs.
It's going to be a silly game tomorrow night. It's going to end at 11:30.
You ready to go, Wags?
Yeah, I'm ready. And I'm going to go back to the pitching side of things. And don't worry.
18 innings from the starters.
Never again. But this one requires a lot less math than last week, and I don't have to calculate anything in my head on the go. But I'm going to go to Lance Williams. I really like the Lance Williams matchup against a team like Rice. And I think Lance is going to start on Saturday again. And I think he's going to set a new career high in strikeouts with 7. His career high to this point is 5. He got that against Coastal Carolina. And he has 4 a couple times, I believe. But I think Lance Williams, he will give you a good length on Saturday again, and he will pick up 7 strikeouts to pick up a new career high.
All right, I like that. I'm going to tie this in with Casey Romeli. He says, it's going to be a good game tomorrow in Coombs. I'll be there. If I see Jaden Winter step on the mound, I'm leaving, though. Jaden Winter is going to pick up his 2nd win of the season this week, is my bold prediction. He's already 1-0. He's going to get win number 2. Don't know when it's going to happen. Give me a Jaden Winter W. And he has not pitched since the VCU game, which I'm not sure if that was his win or the Old Dominion game. He honestly hasn't been that bad. So I think Jaden Winter gets it done this week, and he's going to make Kaysen eat his words. So I'm going to roll with that. Johnny Robertson says the Pirates will prevail over Duke to stay undefeated against teams outfitted by Nike. 6-0. Johnny, where do you get this stuff?
That's crazy, but that's awesome.
I talked to the ECU Jungle, Pack the Jungle guy off Twitter in Fayetteville, and I told him, I was like, Johnny could just be making all this stuff up.
He
and
probably
we wouldn't have
is.
no way of fact checking it. But
Outfitted
does
by
UNC
Nike.
not count? I guess they're Jordan for baseball too, or are they Nike?
I think they're full Jordan, but isn't Jordan a branch of Nike?
I don't know. I think Nike owns Jordan, but they're not Nike. I don't know.
If I go to Jordan on Google, it says Nike.com/Jordan. But I think from an apparel standpoint with college athletics, it's still branded differently, obviously. So we're just going to roll with Johnny. He's always right.
I like it.
Zach Griffin says Michael Kalinic hits a home run and does the horns down to David Pierce. That's his bold prediction of the week. If he does that, I will buy Michael Kalinic a beer when he's old enough.
Dave Pierce might do it back the way things ended in Texas.
It is true.
That's kind of why I have a weird feeling that you might drop one of those games. Just David Pierce going to be hungry.
Nothing scares you like a hungry David Pierce.
Hey, at least he doesn't have to worry about anybody's arms dangling over the fence.
This is true, and that'll be next year. He can complain about that.
Can't wait.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time. We made it our full hour. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And quick, we'll go around the horn here. Will any of our Major League Baseball teams make the playoffs before we get to opening day? The Seattle Mariners, I'm saying no. Scott Lorbatcher, your Cincinnati Reds.
They're going to do it. Actually, I did put all 3 of our teams in as a parlay earlier this week just to see what the number was, and I think a $5 bet would pay for my kids' college. So, I think the Reds do make the leap this year. Ellie De La Cruz MVP season coming down the pipe.
I would love to see that. That would be great. Wags?
Yeah, I think one of our favorite teams is going to make it. It sure as hell won't be mine, but it's another one of those years. The kids are going to be out for the Nats. They should take a step forward. I think ideally you get around 75. Maybe you push to 500. But I think next offseason is the offseason where the Nats give out like a Jason Worth type contract. They kind of get that big veteran to push them over the edge, but they're not ready yet. I think it's going to be some ups and downs like recent years, but not quite yet.
Nay, not quite. Where is Lane Thomas and Joey Meneses when you need him? Nats legends, right?
Joey Meneses, New York Met.
Yeah, do you still have your Lane train bobblehead?
Mine's sitting right here on the left.
One of the things that did not make it in Wags' historic background. All right, we got to get out of here. It's been fun. We'll be back next Monday night, 9 o'clock, to recap the Rice series and the week that was. We'll see you then.